Hi, everyone. This is my first podcast. My name is Chelsea Miller. I am a PhD student at Colorado State University. I am in the Food Science and Nutrition department, except I don't think they call it that there. I think it's part of the College of Health and Human Services still, but anyway, side tangent. Um, I felt inspired to start this first podcast because I am officially 3 weeks into my program and I'm feeling all sorts of emotions. And what better way to process those than to talk to you about it? I have wanted to start a podcast about a bunch of different things in the past, but I think one, this is most relatable to me right now. Two, I really haven't heard a lot of people talk about their experiences in the PhD realm, and it's very real stuff that I'm going through right now. So, anyway, I don't know how this is going to go, but thank you for listening, whoever you are. And I guess I'll just start by explaining how my first couple of weeks went. I might have to reverse back to how I started to choose a grad school, but that'll be its own episode, I think. So I guess we'll just jump into week one. Week one was chaotic. I think I had this false sense that things were going to be taken slowly. I went into my first day and I had advanced nutrition lecture. This class, he started off with the syllabus and then we literally went from talking about how to get a hold of him to glucose absorption in enterocytes. It's not a very simple process. And I was just very overwhelmed and caught off guard because I didn't realize that we were going to be jumping right into that sort of topic. And then the rest of the day, I spent putting my calendar together and meeting people in the office, which was fine, but also meeting new people after getting shocked with information just felt like too much for me to deal with that day. So I'm pretty sure that I went home early. And then the days following Monday, it was just more of this panicked sense of overwhelm. My statistics class, I didn't actually know that it was on Tuesdays and Thursdays until Thursday when I showed up and thought it was the first day of class, and it was actually the second day of class. And so we didn't go over to the syllabus because I wasn't there on the day that they did. Wednesday, what even happened on Wednesday? Oh, it was more of the same advanced nutrition because I have that 2 times a week. I also had a meeting with my mentor that week, and I was telling her after the first day how I was feeling, and she was like, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay. If you didn't feel like this, it would be weird." And I said, "Okay." By the time Friday rolled around, I just didn't even know where to start. And that kind of feeling just stuck with me the whole weekend. And I put more things in my calendar. I read some more material and I was able to work on the homework that I needed to work on, especially the quizzes for my advanced nutrition. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but the first day we were assigned 3 quizzes. And then there were 2 more quizzes that were due at the end of the week. So it was just a lot of information being thrown at me all at one time. I think that's the moral of this story, is that things are overwhelming. There's a lot of information coming in and not a lot of information coming out of me. So week 2, I was still feeling that like panic overwhelm, but I think it was to a lesser degree. I wasn't crying as much, I guess. Monday and Wednesday were advanced nutrition lecture again. I kind of was starting to understand the lecture style of my professor. And I think that was helpful because it helped me generate some questions that I didn't have the first week. And then my statistics class, I'm just sitting there and I literally don't know what this man is talking about. Like, I haven't taken a statistics class since 2018. And when I did, it was statistics for social workers. And we had nothing to do with coding in R or anything. And that is the foundation of this statistics class, is coding in R and understanding stats. I don't have a strong background in math in general, and I've been one to tell myself and other people when I talk about my experience with math that I'm not good at it. And I've been working really hard to change that language because I am a firm believer that the more that you say something, the more you believe it. And I don't want to be bad at math. I don't want to be intimidated by math anymore. But this is proving to be very challenging. We got our homework assigned, the first homework assigned in the second week for that class. And to be honest with you, it wasn't terrible. I didn't talk about this because this is my first episode, but I got introduced to R last summer in the MIT summer research program that I did as an undergrad. And that I didn't even have an introduction to. We kind of just jumped right in, and the grad student mentor that I was working with, he was super great at explaining what we were doing in that moment, but not necessarily the like foundational steps that I needed to take in order to learn how to program from the ground up. So I made a bunch of complicated plots and graphs, and it was super great. But when it comes to now having to use R in a more foundational sense and actually understand the statistics behind it, I'm just getting lost in all of the verbiage because I haven't heard a lot of it before. And my professor, it's almost like he's too smart for his own good. Like, you know, when you talk to someone and they're like an expert in their field and you don't understand anything that they're saying because their language is just the most technical thing you've ever heard. That's kind of the situation with a lot of professors, but especially stats. I don't know what it is. It's like you reach this point where you've just learned so much about statistics that you just assume that everyone else knows the terms the way that you do. And I wish it wasn't like that, because you have people like me who have a background in nutrition, and prior to that, very minimal knowledge of math or statistics until I got into research. And I'm not the only person. I know that there are several people in my class that are sitting in lecture and they just don't know what's going on. And it's to the point where we don't know what's going on so terribly that there's only 2 or 3 people in class that are actually asking questions. The rest of us are just sitting there blinking, like waiting for class to end and writing notes down frantically. So I don't know. Stats week 2 was a trigger for me. I cried both days that I had it that week. I cried again after Wednesday's advanced nutrition class. And I'm so happy I don't have classes on Fridays, because it's kind of like a day for me to catch up from the week, get a game plan together of what I need to work on over the weekend, and just kind of give myself a break. So I'm having a feeling that Fridays are going to be like my day of either crying a lot or getting a lot of things done. I am now going into, let's see, now I'm at week 3, which was last week. I actually didn't cry all week. So I think my measure of progress is whether or not I cry, I think. I'm definitely one of those people who process their emotions through crying. So it makes sense that this is my metric. But week 3 was solid. I still don't know what's going on, but it feels less overwhelming. And I haven't mentioned this because I was focusing on my classes, but I want to jump into the people that I'm surrounded by now because I think that that is a major factor in my growing confidence level going into week 4 now. So, the people in my program, I'm surrounded by a bunch of master's students who are just starting, but I'm the only PhD declared starting this semester in the fall. But I do have access to other PhD students that are in my program. They're just a little bit further along. But there's a guy who is in a different lab than me. He got his master's done at CSU, but he is now doing his PhD. So he's technically just starting. And him and I had several conversations throughout week 2 and throughout last week. And he just gave me this like realistic kick in the pants that I needed. And it was this simple quote that he told me that I literally wrote on a sticky note and put it in my office because I needed to remind myself. And this quote that he gave me, it goes something like, when you start a PhD, you start to figure out how many things you don't know and how much more you want to learn or how much more you need to learn. And it kind of just put things in perspective for me that it's impossible to understand everything. And I have another close friend who is actually in my lab, but about to defend in October. Kate, I know you're not going to listen to this because social media and everything is not your vibe, but I love you. And I'm so appreciative to have you as a friend and as a resource in this crazy PhD program. But Kate has given me her wisdom. She has given me reassurance, and she has also met me with so much patience, especially if I'm talking to her about the same thing. So having her as a guide has been really helpful. I also keep in contact with my grad student mentor friend, Grace, back from SDSU, and she's amazing. I call her often, and I've also leaned on her to help me with, getting through the overwhelm, because that's been the most challenging part, is crying because I'm overwhelmed, crying because I'm not understanding what I feel like I need to be understanding in order to be successful in these classes. And I'm honestly just so hard on myself for being where I am mentally, even though this is a huge adjustment. And I know that. And a lot of other people are meeting me with patience and grace, but I am not doing the same for myself. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because I really do need to remind myself that I'm really not expected to know everything. Even if my professors are talking to me as if I should, that's not necessarily the expectation. I also have leaned on some of my friends who have gone through their registered dietetic internships and their master's programs. Shout out April, because you've been such a help in validating these feelings, but also it's been interesting to be on the receiving end of my friend April's experiences in her master's program and her level of anxiety and, this chaos in her mind and the imposter syndrome. And now it's for me coming full circle because I'm now in a place where I can fully understand what that means. Obviously, through my own perspective, but the biggest thing that it comes down to is that I could not have predicted how I was going to handle this, and no one could have prepared me for it either. And that's both frustrating and comforting at the same time because I'm getting validation that one, the way I'm feeling is okay, and two, that I will get through it. Like I've gotten through many hard things before. It's just different. I think there's a lot of pressure to become an expert in your field when it comes to pursuing a PhD and a career in academia. And I don't want to succumb to that pressure. I don't want to feel inadequate all the time because that is going to take the fun out of it. It's going to take the inspiration out of learning so much. And so my job as a student, but also as a person with high functioning anxiety, I guess, is to keep that in check and remind myself the reasons why I chose to do a PhD in the first place. And I have a few reasons. I guess the first one is that I am one of those people who's inspired to learn more about a lot of things. I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to pursue research more seriously because I really didn't know anything about research until my second semester at SDSU back in 2020. Or I guess my second semester would have been 2021 in the spring. But that was my first introduction to research. And I had amazing mentorship from my professors. And one of them, Dr. Soul, shout out to you. I don't even know who's going to be listening to this podcast, but I hope that it reaches the people I care about because I am just filled with gratitude that people like Dr. Soul take a chance on me and they see my potential before I do. And they tell me that they see this potential and help me along the way find a research program that allows me to be funded as an undergraduate student to do research in a lab, to tell me about summer research programs that would help expand my opportunities. And now my mentor at CSU for taking a chance on me, seeing my potential in an area of research that I'm the most unfamiliar with because my project has to do with an autoimmune disorder and sourdough bread. And that was not what I focused on in my undergrad. I think one of the most exciting ideas that has come out of starting this PhD program is that I can be the person who sees someone's potential and help guide them through this process the same way that I've been guided through. And pick up some helpful tools along the way that maybe I have reflected on and didn't get, but want to provide for other people. So that's a huge motivation for me to pursue this career in academia as a professor. It's the end goal. But not just a professor. I want to embody mentorship in the ways that are most meaningful for me. And that's with, the guidance, the unacknowledged potential from the person who harbors it, the knowledge base that you gain from taking yourself out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in positions where you know that things are going to be hard. And it's really hard to see all of that when I'm amidst my panic spiral right after a class. But this is yet another reason why I wanted to do this podcast, because I think I can, if I can stand it, listen back on my own voice and remind myself why I'm here and why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. So this one is short. I don't know when the next episode's going to be or what it's going to be about. But for those of you who are listening, if you have any questions that have been sparked from this, short blab session about my first 3 weeks as a PhD student, let me know. I think I'll do a formal introductory podcast. You'll probably listen to it before this, because now that I'm talking to you, I think it would make more sense to introduce myself more properly before jumping right into I'm stressed, crying, and panicked all the time. But anyway, thank you for being here. I also have an Instagram. It's at theleafylentil, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks for listening. See you again soon.